All right, so you want to talk nutrition, huh? And it sounds like we're going beyond just like the basics of eating your veggies.
You got it. It seems like you're really interested in the nitty-gritty of what it takes to be a dietitian.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. What do these sources even say a dietitian actually does all day?
Well, first of all, forget that image of them just handing out meal plans. It's way more dynamic than that.
Hmm.
Think of them more like nutritional detectives, I guess you could say.
Nutritional
Yeah,
detectives.
they're analyzing what people need, could be individuals or even whole communities, to figure out what their bodies really need to thrive.
So we're talking personalized meal plans, evidence-based advice, the whole shebang.
You got it. And it's not just hospitals and clinics anymore either.
Really? I mean, that seemed like the obvious places for them to be.
Oh, definitely. But it's way more diverse than you might think. Schools, food companies, research. Some are even going virtual.
Oh, yeah, telehealth. That's everywhere these days.
Exactly. And I think the food company thing is really interesting, don't you?
Definitely. You don't hear about dietitians working with food companies every day.
Right. But it makes sense there's so much focus now on food science and the nutritional side of things. Who better to consult than someone who specializes in it?
That's a really good point. I'd imagine this career path is in pretty high demand.
You're right. The sources I saw all mention that employment for dietitians is expected to, like, skyrocket.
Yeah.
People are finally realizing that food isn't just about taste, it's fuel.
Totally. Okay, so there's a demand for them, but what's it actually like to be a dietitian? Give me the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, the sources all highlighted flexibility. You can specialize in a certain area of dietetics or work in different types of settings.
I like the sound of that.
Plus, you get to actually see the difference you're making in people's lives, helping them feel their best. That's got to be rewarding.
Totally. But it can't all be sunshine and roses, right?
You're right, every job has its downsides. The sources did mention it can be emotionally draining, especially if you're working with people struggling with health issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're dealing with people at a very personal level, their health, their habits, their relationship with food.
Exactly. And beyond that, you have to constantly stay updated on the latest research. Nutrition science is always evolving.
So you have to be a lifelong learner, always on top of new discoveries.
Yes. You don't want to give outdated advice, right?
Yeah, right. So let's say someone's hooked on this career path. What does it take to actually become a dietitian? Okay, so you're fascinated by food, passionate about helping people, and ready to hit the books, I guess. What does that even look like for a dietitian? What kind of education are we talking?
Well, usually it starts with a bachelor's degree. The sources mention nutrition and dietetics being pretty common majors.
Yeah, those make sense, but I think we also saw something about psychology. That seems a little out of left field.
It might seem that way, but it's really not. Like,
Mm.
think about it. Psychology helps dietitians understand why people make the food choices they do. That's huge when you're creating meal plans and trying to help someone, especially if they have maybe a complicated relationship with food.
Right, you're not just addressing the physical need for nutrients, there's a whole mental and emotional component too.
Exactly. But a degree is, like, just the beginning. The sources really stressed that it's not enough to just have the book smarts. You need actual experience.
Yeah, real world experience. Makes sense. You can't learn everything in a classroom. So what are we talking about here? Internships.
Internships for sure. Also, volunteering like in a hospital or a clinic,
Yeah.
maybe even getting involved with community nutrition programs.
So it's about getting your hands dirty, seeing firsthand how dietetics plays out in different settings.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you want to move up in this field, specializing is where it's at.
So finding your niche, becoming the expert in a specific area of dietetics. What were some of the examples we saw?
Pediatric nutrition is a big one. Kids have such specific nutritional needs at different stages of development.
Right, makes sense. What else?
Sports nutrition is huge right now, too. It's all about how to use diet to, enhance athletic performance, prevent injuries, all of that. And of course, working with older adults. That's only going to become more important as the population ages.
Totally. Different groups of people have such different needs. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Definitely not. And that actually reminds me, the sources really emphasize the importance of being a lifelong learner.
Because what we know about nutrition is constantly evolving, right? New research, new studies are coming out all the time.
All the time. To be successful, dietitians can't just rely on what they learned in school however many years ago. They've got to stay on top of the latest research, maybe go to conferences, things like that.
Yeah, makes sense. You mentioned certifications earlier. What are some of the big ones? Like, how do you know if a dietitian is, legit?
Well, Becoming a registered dietitian nutritionist, that's a big one. I think they call it an RDN for short.
Okay, so that's like a nationally recognized certification, shows you meet certain standards.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are more specialized certifications depending on your area of focus. Like, I think one example was a certified diabetes educator.
So someone with that certification could work specifically with people who have diabetes.
Right. They'd be able to give really targeted advice and support based on the latest research on diabetes and nutrition.
Okay, so you've got the education, the real-world experience, and you're committed to staying up to date in this constantly changing field. What's next on the road to becoming a dietitian? It's the
Yeah.
moment of truth, right? You've got to nail that interview. So tell me, what kind of tips did these RoleCatcher sources have? Like, how do you actually impress a potential employer?
Well, they definitely stressed being ready for the typical stuff. Like,
Yeah.
tell me about your experience, or why did you choose to become a dietitian? All
It's
that.
classics, right?
Yeah, but then they took it a step further. They gave examples of questions that, like, really test your problem-solving skills. They want to see how you think on your feet.
So it's not enough to just know the science.
Yeah.
You have to be able to apply it to those tricky, messy, real-world situations.
Right. And not just apply it, but communicate it in a way that makes sense to people, even if they don't have a background in nutrition.
Yeah, because you could be the most knowledgeable dietitian in the world, but if you can't connect with your clients on a human level, it's not going to get you very far.
Exactly. They even had examples of, like, how would you handle a client who isn't motivated to change their eating habits, or someone who's really struggling to stick to their meal plan? It's all about showing that compassion and understanding.
So it's not just about being right. It's about meeting people where they're at and finding a way to help them move forward. Okay, but this is where it gets really interesting. This whole AI interview prep thing, how does that even work?
I know, this sounds kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense. You can use AI to analyze a job description and, like, really pick out those key skills and experiences they're looking for. Then you can make sure those are highlighted in your resume.
Oh, so it's not about sending out the same generic resume for every job. You can tailor it to each specific opportunity.
Exactly. But wait, there's more. It gets even cooler. You can actually do mock interviews with AI,
Really? Like, I'm talking to a computer and it's asking me interview questions.
or pretty much. And the AI gives you feedback on things like your body language,
Yeah.
your tone of voice, even if you're making eye contact. It's like having your own personal interview coach.
That is wild. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What's the main takeaway for someone who's thinking, yeah, career as a dietitian, that's for me?
I think it's clear this is a field that requires real passion and commitment. Yeah, you've got to love food, but you've also got to be dedicated to helping others and to always learning and growing.
Because the world of nutrition is constantly changing, and to be the best, you've got to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be the one pushing the boundaries of what we know about nutrition, doing research, publishing your own work, mentoring other dietitians. The possibilities are endless.
From AI interview coaches to groundbreaking research, it's an exciting time to be in this field. Well, there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the world of dietetics, the challenges, the rewards, and everything in between. It's not your typical 9 to 5, but it's definitely a career path with the potential to make a real impact.